And welcome to all of you to this Vote 09 special report. It's a live debate on question one. As you all know, the eyes of the nation really are focused on Maine when it comes to this issue. Maine has been beginning with you, Brian, for the opening statements, or Mary? Mary. Mary, you are beginning our opening statements. You have 1 minute to address us and tell us why you believe on your side.
Yes. Thank you for inviting us here, and thank you all for listening. The No on One campaign stands for a very simple and basic proposition. All people, including gay and lesbian couples, should be treated equally under the law. Right now in this state, we have same-sex couples, many dedicated to each other for decades, living throughout this state, and yet they are legal strangers to one another. Marriage is important because when you marry, it makes you a family, and in addition to that, there are many rights and protections and responsibilities that come along with that marital status that help families to thrive, to be safe. We have couples who want to make that legal commitment, who want to take on those responsibilities, and we want to ask, why would anyone want to get in the way of those families? Why would anyone want to make those families less secure? Why would anyone want to get in the way of their commitment and responsibility? And that's why we're asking people to vote no on question one.
All right, Mary Bonanno, thank you very much. We now turn to you, Brian Suchet, from the Yes on One side.
On November 3rd, the voters of Maine have a very important decision to make, and they're going to have to choose between two very different and competing views of marriage. In the first view that's currently embodied in the law, we have marriage that's bringing together the two halves of humanity, men and women, in order to create the next generation and raise them in an environment where they can be known and loved by their mothers and fathers. In the other view, that's shown in LD 1020, we have a vision of marriage where all mentions of family have been removed, all mentions of children have been removed. We have a bill that says simply that marriage is the union of any two persons, and that is it. One view of marriage discusses the benefits that the family and marital union brings to society. The other view of marriage simply discusses the benefits that society can bring to a specific relationship. They're two fundamentally different views of marriage, and there will be repercussions to the vote on November 3rd. This is why we're asking voters to vote yes on one.
All right, thanks very much, Brian Suchet, and thank you to both of you for keeping better track of the coin flip than I did off the top there. Let's get right to our first question, our first discussion topic. And again, our goal here is to really facilitate a discussion on key points in this campaign. To that end, let's begin with this. What, in your words, is marriage? And when it comes to that, what do you believe it's important to allow or not allow? Why allow or not allow same-sex couples to have marriage privileges? I have about a minute or so for each of you to respond, and then I want you to engage each other perhaps on each of your answers. So, Brian, as your campaign obviously brought this to the ballot, let's start with you. What, in your opinion, is a marriage, and why should it be allowed or not allowed to be extended to homosexual couples?
Well, I think my opening statement said it all. Marriage, in our opinion, is the union of men and women, and that does bring forth the next generation of society. In our view of marriage, procreation is an integral element of marriage. I think the current law is very clear on that. Marriage has to do with children and bringing them forth in society. Marriage has to do with families. Granted, not all people that get married either want to have children or can have children, but that's a small minority, and we shouldn't change the whole institution of marriage just because some people do not want to have children. It's about children, and it's about a relationship that has benefits for society.
Brian Suchet. And now to you, Mary Bonanno, same question.
Yeah, and very similar to my opening statement as well, which is that marriage in the law, and that we did change the law in Augusta, marriage requires people to be in a committed partnership because they take on a lot of responsibilities for one another. And ideally, it is a partnership, and it's an affectionate partnership, and once you are in that marriage, really, because marriage has been around so long, even though it has continued to change to reflect our views of equality, everybody then understands you're a family and you have an automatic right to be by each other's side. And what has happened over the years is the government more and more has provided protections for those families, legal bread and butter protections that help families take care of each other. And if you're not included in that and you're left out, you really can fall through the safety net, have a harder time getting insurance, caring for your kids, and so on. So we look at it really as what the law has said, and it is the law that has changed, and that you have committed couples who want to take on that partnership, be committed to one another. You know, there are many gay and lesbian couples raising kids, and to the extent we think that marriage is good for kids, then I would certainly say that it's good for the kids of gay and lesbian parents for the same reasons.
Brian, do you want to respond to anything you said there?
Sure. The current law actually still talks about children and families. The current law is the law that was passed in 1997. LD 1020 has not passed, and that's what we're going to talk about on November 3rd. It will not pass unless the voters vote on it.
Any follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, you know, from 1820 to 1997, Maine law dealt with what is marriage the way that we've always dealt with marriage. In 1997, there was an anti-gay marriage law that was proposed by initiative petition, and the legislature let it become law rather than send it out for a vote. So that's where that language comes from. So I'm not surprised. You know, that's the language that then has had to be repealed when the legislature passed LD 1020. It doesn't mean that marriage is not about, if you have kids, taking care of those kids and being committed to one another.
And as a discussion point, as a follow-up as well, Brian, let me send this to you.
Sure.
You mentioned the importance of children in the family and
yes.
a committed relationship to that. Gay couples are legally allowed to adopt, obviously
yes,
legally allowed to have biological children right now. How is that different than what you're talking about?
Well, they come from somewhere. I mean, we have to be honest about that. And all I'm saying is that the union of men and women, it's a fundamentally different relationship than any other relationship we have out there. It's different than mothers and sons. It's different than siblings. And yes, it is different than two men or two women. Society treats this union of men and women differently than others, and it is not discrimination to do so, by the way, because they are fundamentally different. This is where the next generation of society comes from. So even gay and lesbian couples who do have children, maybe they've adopted, maybe I don't know where the children came from, but they came from a mother and a father, and we think mothers and fathers, not just parents in general, but specifically moms and dads, are both important to the rearing of children. There are families that don't have that. I'm not denying that, but there is an ideal of mommies and daddies in the lives of young children.